At 18, she was given in exchange for a horse to discover her incredible life-changing journey. Sarah's heart raced as she stood on the sun-kissed porch of her family's modest home. The worn wooden boards creaked beneath her, just like her dreams of leaving Appalachia for college. Her father, once a proud soldier, now wore his despair like a tattered uniform. With factory jobs declining and bills stacking higher than the hills surrounding them, shadows of hopelessness crept into their once bright home. It was during one of those dark days that she learned the price of desperation. The townsfolk gossiped in hushed tones, their eyes wide with disbelief. "He can't really be considering it, can he?" they whispered, shaking their heads in shock. But Sarah's father was driven by more than poverty. He was blinded by the promise of a prized racing horse owned by Mr. Thompson, the wealthiest landowner in town. In a moment of sheer desperation, he struck a deal that would rip the foundation of their family apart. His daughter for a horse. When the words left his lips, time froze. "I'm trading Sarah for the horse." Every gasp echoed in her ears like gunfire. Hope shattered. Her dreams slipped away like the summer breeze, leaving only the bitter taste of betrayal in her mouth. Stripped of her freedom, Sarah was thrust into a world of servitude, working on Thompson South's sprawling estate, a stark contrast to her humble upbringing. Days turned into weeks, and as she scrubbed floors and tended to horses, she felt the weight of her father's choice pressing down on her. Yet, amidst the toil, she found companionship with the other women in servitude. Each had their own tragic stories, bubbling with pain but also resilience. They laughed in the face of hardship, shared their dreams, and weaved a kind of sisterhood that sparked a fire within Sarah. "Together, we can do more," she urged one evening, the moonlit sky serving as their backdrop. Inspired by their shared struggles, they decided to rise against the injustices. They rallied together, voices powerful enough to shake the very ground they stood on. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. At the town hall meeting, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the energy of her fellow women, a collective force ready to ignite change. Nervous but determined, she stepped forward. "We cannot allow our worth to be measured by wealth." Her voice rang through the hall, silencing the murmurs. With every word, she unraveled the chains of silence that had held them captive for so long, but just as victory seemed within reach, a figure stood in the back, a stranger, eyes piercing through the crowded room. "You don't know the whole story about her family," he called out. Gasps echoed, casting dark clouds over Sarah's radiant moment. Secrets, long buried, began to surface, threatening to tear apart the unity they had fought so hard to build. In that moment of uncertainty, with the eyes of the townsfolk upon her, Sarah's heart raced. Would the secrets destroy her or lead to something greater? As silence enveloped the hall, the stakes grew higher. She could either seek redemption or risk losing everything she fought for. The next chapter of her journey awaited, and it whispered promises of both danger and hope. The room fell silent, the weight of the stranger's words hanging heavy in the air. Sarah's throat felt dry, and her hands trembled at her sides. The townsfolk, who had leaned on her words for courage, now looked at her with a mix of confusion and suspicion. She had hoped to inspire them, but instead, doubt flickered like a candle about to be snuffed out. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, her voice wavering but firm. She needed to reclaim her moment, to regain the trust she saw wavering in the eyes of her friends. "I'm just a man who knows a few things," he replied calmly, as if discussing the weather instead of exposing a hidden truth. "Your father struggled after the war. He wasn't he the man you remember?" An uneasy murmur spread through the crowd. Conversations in low tones replaced the energy that had once sparked hope. Sarah's heart sank. Memories of her father's laughter and stories from his army days clashed with the idea that he had become someone unrecognizable. She hadn't thought he could fall so low. "What do you know about him?" she pressed, taking a step forward. This was a battle she could not afford to lose. "What do you think you know?" "I know he sold you like property," he said, his voice dipping into a dangerously low tone. "And I know he has been struggling with demons, guilt, regret. Your family was never meant to fall apart like this. But he made choices, and those choices have consequences, not just for him, but for you." Sarah felt as if the ground was shifting beneath her feet. She had spent countless nights convincing herself that her father's actions were only a reaction to their desperate situation. But the stranger's words rattled the foundation of her belief. Was her father's suffering so deep that he could abandon her without a second thought? Eyes filled with pity met hers from the gathered women. They had seen her strength, felt her spirit, and now they watched as Sarah grappled with the reality of her father's actions. "Don't listen to him," one of the women shouted defiantly, breaking the tension. "You've rallied us, Sarah. You're our voice." But the stranger was not done. "There's more to this story, things that could change everything," he said. The way he looked at her, it was both challenging and inviting. "Are you willing to fight for the truth, or will you let it destroy you?" She swallowed hard, her mind racing. The truth could be a weapon or a shield. What if it was both? Sweat trickled down the back of her neck, and for the first time, she felt the looming shadows of her past and the stark clarity of her future collide. "I won't shy away from the truth," she answered, her voice stronger now. "But I need to know what it is." The crowd shifted uneasily, whispers darting back and forth. The air felt charged, like a storm about to break. As the stranger took a step closer, Sarah could sense a darker history that loomed over her family and the town alike. "What if the secrets don't just affect you?" he asked, voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. "What if they change everything you believe about your father and your own worth?" With her heart pounding in her ears, Sarah realized she stood at a crossroads. Just then, her resolve hardened. She would confront whatever truths lay hidden. She owed it to herself, to the women who stood beside her, and even to her father, lost as he may be. As she prepared to ask the stranger the first of many questions, a dull roar erupted from outside the hall. The crowd turned, concern washing over their faces. "What now?" someone muttered. Sarah's gut twisted as she thought of all that could be waiting for her outside: chaos, danger, and perhaps the truth she had sought. This was not just about her fight anymore. It was about everyone. What had the world unleashed just as she was ready to confront her own? The door burst open, swinging wildly on its hinges as townsfolk rushed toward the sounds of chaos. Sarah felt the heat of their fear ripple through the room, the uncertainty thick in the air. She pushed herself through the crowd, fear racing alongside her heart. What lay beyond the door could change everything. "Stay close," she called out, not even sure if anyone heard her over the din of shouting and confusion. She half dragged, half begged her friends to follow her as they flowed out into the bright afternoon light. Outside, devastation greeted them. The dusty street, once a familiar sight, was now a battleground of miscommunication and fear. A horse galloped wildly, tossing its head as it kicked up dirt. Men shouted, urging the beast to calm, but it was losing its mind. The air was thick with tension, and in the center of it all stood an overturned cart, goods strewn everywhere, produce, and wares meant for barter, scattered like dreams left in the dust. "What happened?" Sarah urged, scanning the faces of the panicked crowd. Her heart raced not just from the chaos, but from the looming questions in her mind. Could the truth about her father be tied to this madness? As she stepped closer to the cart, a young boy barely 12 sprinted past her, his eyes wide with terror. "They're fighting!" he exclaimed, pointing towards the edge of the town square. Sarah's stomach dropped. Fights had been rare in their small town, but the strain of the past weeks had frayed tempers. People were hungry and desperate. "Listen!" Sarah shouted, hoping to captivate their attention. "We can help each other. Let us calm the horse and sort this out." But her words barely cut through the noise. The crowd surged, pushing and pulling, swept up in their panic and fears. Sarah spotted a group of familiar faces in the throng, her friends, the ones who had stood with her inside just moments ago. "Together!" she shouted, determination rising in her chest. "We can fix this." A woman beside her, Anna, stepped forward, her brow knit with worry. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Let us herd the horse," Sarah yelled. "If we can contain it, maybe we can end this chaos." Without waiting for a response, she dashed towards the fraying edges of the mob, heart pounding in her chest. She felt the energy shift, people were turning toward her, looking for guidance. As she joined the men surrounding the horse, she leaned down and spoke softly to the animal. "Easy now, boy. We're here to help." With quick movements, she and the others formed a wall, guiding the creature gently away from the chaos of the cart. Breath by breath, they calmed its frantic hooves, and slowly, it began to settle. Relief washed over her like a cool breeze after a long summer-esque day. Just then, someone shouted from behind her, "Sarah! Look out!" Before she could react, a shadow loomed over her. The stranger, having followed her outside, emerged from the crowd with a grim expression. He caught her eye, and on his lips was something urgent, something she didn't want to hear but knew she probably needed. "More troubles are on the way," he warned, as onlookers whispered nervously. "Troubles? What do you mean?" He reached for her wrist, pulling her slightly away from the crowd. "You must know there's danger coming, and it's tied right back to your father's choices." The word stabbed through her, sharper than the chaos surrounding them. All the doubts and fears she had just begun to shake off cascaded back into her mind. She was not just fighting for her truth, it was now a fight for her community too. And just as the winds shifted and peace seemed to settle, a deep rumble shivered through the ground beneath them, the kind that heralded not just change, but turmoil. "What now?" Sarah whispered, catching her breath. The stranger's gaze locked with hers, intense and too knowing. "You need to prepare for what comes next. The truth you seek won't just set you free, it will draw a line between who you are and who you'll become." With this final declaration hanging ominously in the air, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She was not ready, yet the world demanded she step forward. What lay ahead would test everything she believed. Would her strength hold? As shadows drew closer and the once familiar street morphed into a stage of turmoil, she braced herself to confront the truth once and for all. Would she find the power in the knowledge her father had hidden away, or would it destroy her? The vibrations in the ground intensified, sending a wave of panic rippling through the crowd once more. Sarah's heart raced as she blinked against the sudden isolation of her thoughts, the stranger's grip firm yet unsettling. She could feel her friends nearby, but they seemed worlds away. "We can't just stand here," she shouted, the urgency pulsing through her voice. "We have to get everyone away from the cart." Before she could finish, a loud crash echoed through the square, drawing her gaze. The horse, finally calmed by their efforts, suddenly bolted again, spooked by the sound of a nearby fence collapsing under the weight of a crowd that pushed and shoved, now more focused on escape than solidarity. "Sarah!" Anna cried, her voice toneless against the havoc. "What do we do?" "Follow me," Sarah yelled. She grabbed Anna's hand and started navigating through the throng of bodies, her instincts guiding her. The world felt surreal, the echoes of fear reverberating off the walls of the buildings that flanked the square. The stranger stayed close, his presence a mixture of safety and foreboding. "If this goes on, it could become a riot," he warned, glancing at the growing crowd, eyes wide with concern. Sarah felt a spark of anger rise within her. All of this chaos, does it even matter to them? She gestured toward the businesses and neighbors that knew their names but were now reduced to shouting faces and flailing arms. "It matters more than you realize," he replied, his tone grave. The truth not only shapes you, but this town. And when it spills over suddenly, a man nearby stumbled, his shout for help tearing Sarah back into the moment. Instinctively, she rushed forward, reaching out to steady him before he fell. Are you okay? She asked, taking in his bruised face, parched lips, and empty gaze. There's fighting everywhere, he gasped, breathless. People want answers, Sarah. They're desperate answers. She felt the weight of his words. What sort of answers? He shook his head, bewildered. The answers you hold. Your father's secrets. They think they know, but they're all wrong. Her pulse quickened as a deep anxiety settling in her chest. Was her father's life a ticking time bomb? Would uncovering the truth only invite more chaos? In that moment of shared panic, a shout broke through, slicing the air like a knife. Stop! Enough! The voice belonged to the mayor, who stood at the far end of the square, hands raised high. Sarah watched him take a step forward, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead. The crowd stirred, shifting like a sea of uneasy reeds. We're better than this. We need to come together. He pleaded, but his words clashed with the urgent need for answers. Sarah felt the clamor of the townsfolk beneath her skin. Her father's past felt crucial, but was it really worth the turmoil it could unleash? The truth can bring healing, the stranger said, leaning in close so only she could hear. But it takes courage to face what's waiting. You need to decide, do you fight for it now, or let fear dictate your future? Each heartbeat echoed in her ears. The faces around her melted together, all seeking resolution, while she stood in the eye of the storm. What if I'm not ready? She whispered, uncertainty bubbling in her gut. Ready or not, it's already here, he replied, his eyes piercing her with resolve. As the ground shook again, a chilling reminder of what lay ahead. Sarah glanced back toward the mayor and realized the true divide stretching across the town. Anna, let us help him, she declared. We need to calm them down, but first we need the truth. With steely resolve, Sarah turned back toward the crowd, determination layering over her initial fears. As she stepped forward, the real battle loomed, one for her community, her family, and her very self. Yet just as she opened her mouth to speak, a bright flash lit the sky above them, followed by a deafening roar. All eyes turned upwards in unison, fear gripping hearts as they all wondered what was coming next. The explosion echoed like thunder, shaking the very ground beneath Sarah's feet. Dust and debris showered down from the awnings above as people screamed and stumbled backward, eyes wide with terror. Her heart raced, every instinct screaming to run. Yet, she found herself frozen, torn between flight and the desperation to do something, anything that might help. Sarah! Anna's voice broke through the cacophony, pulling her back momentarily from the edge of fear. What do we do? But Sarah's thoughts were scattered, swirling like the dust in the air. She took a deep breath, trying to clear her mind. We have to stay together. She called out. We need to get to safety. Just then, the stranger, who had been just behind them, stepped forward and raised his arm, steadying her. No, he said, his voice steady amidst the chaos. For now, we need to rally the people, not scatter. The mayor is right, this is about more than just running. It's about standing firm. His eyes met hers, and something confidence, perhaps flickered within them. It was contagious. She could feel the warmth of it leaching away some of her fear. Okay. You're right, she said, swallowing hard, her breath shaky. Follow my lead. The stranger urged. With a nod from Sarah, he began moving towards the edges of the crowd, beckoning them to gather closer. Sarah and Anna followed, pushing through the chaos, the crowd now parting slightly, unsure but obedient to the stranger's authority. As they reached a more open area of the square, the mayor still stood, his face a mask of determination. We must find the source of this fear. We cannot let panic divide us. People murmured amongst themselves, uncertainty prickling the air. But Sarah felt emboldened now, the rhythms of the gathering around her prompting newfound resolve. "People!" she shouted, her voice sharpened with intensity. It cut through the noise like a beacon. "Please, listen to me." The crowd shifted, eyes turning toward her. She took a breath, heart thundering. "I know there's fear because of my father's secrets, the very secrets I can help explain. Together, we need to face the truth before chaos overtakes us." With that declaration, the crowd shifted again, stirring with murmurs. Eyes filled with doubt met her own, but she wouldn't back down. The stranger stayed beside her, offering a steadying presence. "What if the truth is worse?" someone shouted from the back. It was a voice filled with doubt, twinged with that unmistakable fear. Sarah's heart ached at the challenge. She had no idea what horrors could be hidden in the depths of her father's past. But if she didn't speak, what would become of them? "We've all faced uncertainty, it's part of being a community," she said, her voice rising with fervor. "And we must face it together, as one. That's the only way we'll heal." The mayor's nod urged her on. "Yes. Let us not allow fear to rule our lives. What may come cannot be as devastating as the violence that lies in hiding." As if struck by those words, the crowd began to chatter, a war of emotions clashing. Some were beginning to see the need for connection rather than separation. Hope ignited in Sarah's chest, but then a voice rang out, harsh and raw. "You think you can solve this with brave words? What do you know of what's hidden?" The stranger's expression hardened, and Sarah could feel her fear bubbling back up. "Stop!" she cried out, but the crowd was already fraying again, every anxious heartbeat growing louder. "Look up!" shouted another, pointing as another flash erupted smaller in the sky. A collective gasp spread through the square, something in Sarah stirred. The flash was a warning, visible only to them. "This isn't over," she murmured, gripping Anna's hand tighter. Whatever was coming could bring devastation, but they were at a precipice now. "We have to prepare." As she glanced around, she saw the glimmer of determination in some eyes, even as others remained clouded by fear. In that moment, Sarah realized that standing up for what was right wouldn't just be about her family's past, it was about their future. A decision loomed in the air, thick with urgency. Would they unite against their fears before it was too late? The citizens of their town now looked to Sarah, waiting for her next move. Just then, as the vibrations returned more pronounced than before, a chilling sense enveloped Sarah. In the midst of chaos, the greatest challenge was yet to come. What was hidden within the shadows of her father's life, and would they be brave enough to confront it together before the darkness consumed them all? The fear in the air was palpable, thick enough to taste, and Sarah felt the weight of it pressing against her chest. She looked at the faces surrounding her, their expressions a mix of anger, confusion, and desperation. They needed clarity, a purpose to rally around. Something within her flickered, urging her to step into that power. "Listen!" she shouted, raising her voice above the din once more. "If we stand together, we can learn the truth about what has been hidden. My father's past might hold the key to what we're facing now." Anna squeezed her hand. "You can do this, Sarah." Confidence swelled in her heart. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of dust and fear, and steadied herself. "My father may have made choices that hurt us, choices we don't fully understand. But I believe he did what he thought was right at the time. Maybe those choices can guide us now." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some looked skeptical, others intrigued. But in that moment, as she gazed around, she saw alliances forming in the subtle nods exchanged between neighbors, connections reawakening in shared vulnerability. "Does anyone here know of any secrets?" Sarah pressed on. "Maybe our stories have been intertwined all along. What if those stories could strengthen us instead of tearing us apart?" A woman from the crowd stepped forward, her expression weary but hopeful. "My uncle mentioned something about your father," she began, her voice quivering. He spoke of a deal he made many years ago with a group that might still be active. The crowd leaned in, curious, as whispers passed from person to person. That familiar vibe of community started to hum again, with connections being strengthened through shared fears and experiences that had previously isolated them. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her heart racing not just with fear but with the possible threads of truth that were about to be unraveled. The woman hesitated, glancing at the faces around her, searching for courage. "I don't know the details. Just that it involved protection in exchange for something very important." "What could be more important than our safety?" A voice challenged from the back. Fear mingled with skepticism again, but Sarah sensed the shift in momentum. "Maybe it's time for us to face the monsters lurking in our past," the stranger added, stepping forward and meeting Sarah's gaze. "Whatever it is, let us not let the unknown paralyze us. If we truly want to fight back, we need to bring everything into the light." Hope flared in her chest, but so did the weight of uncertainty. "If my father made a deal that could put us in danger now, then I need to understand it fully." The crowd was talking now, energy building like a storm. Sarah could feel the electricity in the air. Each word, each face, was an anchor pulling them all together. "But we need to do this as a unit," she implored. "We need to support each other, confront whatever truths may come." The stranger nodded, tightening his hand into a fist. "And in facing those truths, we might just find the strength we've been looking for." As adrenaline coursed through her, Sarah's heart raced with a sense of purpose. They could be stronger together. But the question lingered: what truths would they discover, and would those truths forge them into a resilient collective or tear them further apart? The vibrations beneath them intensified, the earth shuddering as if reminding them of the urgency of the moment. With every passing second, time seemed to slip away, urging them to uncover old stories whose echoes threatened to resound violently in their lives, and amidst the mounting tension, she could feel her father's shadow looming larger with every heartbeat waiting to be confronted. "Let us find out who we really are, before it's too late." Just as the crowd rallied under her words, another flash exploded overhead, brighter and nearer than before. Sarah gazed upward, skin prickling. What was coming, and would they have the courage to face it together? The collective gasp that swept through the crowd pulled Sarah's focus back down. The flash overhead faded, but an unshakable tension lingered like the weight of a storm cloud. They needed answers. What secrets had been buried? What sacrifices had been made in the name of safety? "Sarah," Anna whispered, drawing her attention back. "We can do this together. You're not alone." Her friend's quiet support was a comforting anchor. Sarah looked back at the gathering, searching for courage in their faces. Hope flickered behind her ribcage, urging her on. "We can't shy away from the truth. It's time we confront this, whatever it is." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. One by one, they nodded, caught up in the momentum of shared purpose. The energy shifted, the air crackling as though the ground beneath them thrummed with their resolve. "I want to hear all of it," she said with a fierceness she didn't know she had. "Everything you know. We need to connect the dots, piece together the puzzle that has kept us apart for too long." A man from the edge of the crowd stepped forward, his brow furrowed with thought. "I used to work with your father. There were rumors of a pact. Things your dad had to keep hidden to protect the community. But at what cost? We've been living under that shadow for so long." Questions swirled in Sarah's mind like leaves in the wind. What kind of pact? It was about resources, wasn't it? The woman who first spoke chimed in. Like a trade agreement. Protection in exchange for something precious, something we haven't grasped fully. Sarah's heart raced as the pieces began to form. What was it, though? Was it power? Information? Or something more personal? "My uncle wouldn't say," the woman continued, her voice trembling slightly. "He died before he could share everything. But he always hinted it was something that could change everything for our town." The crowd murmured anxiously, a ramping wave of emotion pulsating through them. Suspicion hung in the air. Change. Sarah echoed softly. Maybe that's exactly what we need. We've been living in fear, in the dark. Isn't it time we bring light to this? The words rang out like an invocation. The crowd drew closer, faces alight with determination. Each person craved connection and truth. Memories flashed in Sarah's mind, her father's stories, the moments he had revealed only fragments of his past, and how they transformed reality. What if this pact also ties into what is happening now? A different voice suggested, a glint of hope sparking in the tone. What if understanding it could help us fight back against whatever's threatening us? Sarah felt a surge of courage rush through her. Then we need to find those who know more. We need to dig deep into his past. We won't just take what's been handed to us, it's time to reclaim our narrative. The crowd erupted into a chorus of fervent agreement. Each declaration felt like a fire igniting, each face radiated determination. They could do this together, but they needed to face more than just history. They would confront the fear that had spread like vines over their lives. Let us split into teams. We can gather information, stories, anything tied to my father's dealings, Sarah proposed, her voice steady now. We need to act fast. The longer we wait, the less control we have over our fate. Just as she took a step forward, another tremor ran beneath them, more intense this time. The earth shook violently, forcing them to steady themselves. The howling winds began to scream around them, blotting out her thoughts and drowning the crowd's cheers. Stay focused. She yelled against the chaos. We must unite our strength. But as the ground split in front of them, revealing a shadowy depth that seemed ready to swallow them whole, Sarah felt one cold realization seize her heart. The shadows weren't just remnants of the past. They were alive. And they were coming. What if my father's choices are what brought this upon us? She gasped, the bleak weight settling upon her shoulders. The crowd hushed, all eyes on her, fear mirrored in their expressions. And then, above the howling wind and trembling ground, a new voice echoed, a chilling, familiar voice that cut straight through the chaos. Sarah, you need to know the truth about me before it's too late. Could courage stand against the dark, and would it be enough to face an unstoppable past? The wind howled like a mourning creature, and the ground trembled with each pulse of uncertainty. Sarah felt her insides twist as that voice drifted through the chaos. It was a voice that echoed her childhood, filled with warmth and a commanding presence that could soften the hardest of days. Dad? She questioned, her heart pounding in her chest. It was impossible, but desperation squeezed every last drop of hope out of her. Yet, standing there, confronted by shadows and fractures in the earth, she couldn't shake the feeling that something essential was at stake. The crowd tensed. Murmurs swept through, a mix of confusion and fear. Anna reached for Sarah's hand, squeezing it tightly. You don't have to face this alone, she reminded her, eyes wide with worry. Speak. Someone shouted from the back, voice rising above the chaos. What do you know? As if on cue, the shadows shifted, swirling together to form an outline, a figure emerging from dark, like a specter unwillingly resurrected. The crowd gasped as a man emerged, his face obscured but familiar. Sarah, he said, his voice deep and steady. I've waited too long for this moment. The realization hit her like a cold wave. It can't be, she whispered, memories flooding back, the essence of him she thought lost, the stories he had woven for her as a child. But what had he hidden? What had he sacrificed? Before you judge, his voice cracked like thunder rumbling over distant hills, let me explain. With every step he took, the ground began to calm, the screaming winds fading into a distant murmur, replaced by the collective anticipation of the crowd. There was a deal, Sarah, he continued, lifting his hand as if to shield her from the truth. A trade made in desperation. I had to protect this town, your home. But in my pursuit of safety, I sealed it with sacrifices that will haunt us if we don't confront them. What do you mean? She pressed, taking a step towards him, every word a push towards unraveling the knot inside her gut. There were lives exchanged, he said, his voice barely a whisper now, barely audible over the silence that had enveloped them. Worlds traded to ensure the safety of the many, and you were connected to all of it. Her breath caught. Was he referring to her? A sickening feeling washed over her as her heart raced. What do you mean? Connected how? We made a choice, one that you might not have wanted. You are part of something bigger, Sarah. Something that has always been lurking, waiting for you to unravel it. Each word felt like a puzzle piece slotted into place, but the picture it formed was horrifying. The shadows danced around them, emphasizing the gravity of their situation. What could possibly justify such a choice? Sarah asked, pain threading through her voice, anger boiling just beneath the surface. You could have told me, Dad. We could have confronted this together. The figure cleared his throat, the weight of regret heavy on his shoulders. At the time, I believed I was protecting you. Silence swelled between them, thick and suffocating. The town held its breath, every heartbeat synchronized with Sarah's racing thoughts. She felt the pull of anger and love, of confusion and longing. Why now? She demanded, her voice rising. Why do you choose to tell me this when it's too late? Because the choice must be made again, he said, his eyes locking with hers, a mix of urgency and sorrow. The pact faces breach, and we need you to navigate this before the shadows reclaim what they lost. Was she truly capable of such a task? Stand with me, Sarah, he urged, his presence solid, somehow freeing amidst the swirling darkness. We can rewrite this story before it's too late. As he extended his hand, something deep within Sarah stirred, an instinct forged in the fire of years spent in ignorance, yearning for answers. Did she dare step into the unknown, face the darkness that had haunted her? With the shadows pressing in around her, she faced the choice: would she reach out to reclaim control over her destiny? Before she could decide, another tremor shook the earth. This time, it was deeper, more primal. The ground rumbled with a new kind of urgency, the skies above glowing ominously. Sarah! Anna cried, pulling her back from the brink. We need to make a choice fast. As the shadows around them writhed and shifted, Sarah felt her heart thud against her ribs. She had to choose what path to take. Clarity was seeping through the fog, but was it enough? The weight of the moment pressed down. She took a deep breath, glancing at the faces around her, faces filled with hope and fear. What if we can change the rules? She thought aloud, gathering her resolve. The winds howled louder, fierce and restless, fanfaring her determination. In that moment, she understood. Maybe it was time to confront the shadows, not with fear, but with the light of knowledge. But as the ground quaked again, even stronger this time, she felt the pull of the past wrestle against her and the new path she sought. Whatever we do, let us hurry, she whispered to Anna, hope mingling with trepidation. We must choose our truth before the shadows decide for us. What if they were stalling the inevitable? Would they find the courage to turn the tide in their favor, or would they be consumed by the darkness that loomed ahead? The earth trembled again, as if it were alive, protesting everything about this moment. Sarah's heart raced. She looked into her father's eyes, searching for any sign of the man she once knew, the one who had promised her safety above all else. But those eyes, deep, swirling with regret, were now a cryptic map of her family's history, leading to uncharted territory. Sarah! Anna's voice broke through her thoughts, urgency coloring her tone. What are we waiting for? We can't stand here forever. Every person in the crowd wanted answers, drawn together by something larger than themselves, by the weight of their intertwined fates. The old man who had once been her father was now a stranger, burdened with secrets that rippled through the air like an electric storm. What's our plan? She asked, turning to Anna, grasping the solidity of her friend's hand for support. How do we fight shadows, whatever they are? We start by believing in each other. Anna declared, a spark igniting in her eyes. If we can face whatever comes next together, we might find a way to right the wrongs. Her words hung in the air, a fragile lifeline in the chaos that surrounded them. Sarah took a deep breath, nodding slowly. Right, but what does that even look like? She whispered, the weight of uncertainty gnawing at her. Her father stepped forward, the shadows tightening around him. You have the power within you, Sarah, he said, conviction rising in his voice. What you choose to believe will shape what happens next. The wind died down momentarily, as if the universe itself leaned in to catch her response. Why had he waited all these years? The thought clawed at her, but now was not the time to dwell on past betrayals. The moment was about action, choice, and the possibility of forging a new path together. Then let us confront it, Sarah said, her voice stronger now. Together. The crowd exhaled collectively, a mix of hope and fear as they felt the air shift. Sarah's heart pounded like a drum, igniting something fierce within her. She couldn't ignore the whispers of destiny clawing at her gut. Everyone, listen. She shouted, raising her free hand to rally her friends and neighbors. If we are tied to this in any way, then it's time we stood united. It's time to reclaim what was lost. Anna squeezed her hand tightly, emboldened by Sarah's resolve. The crowd murmured, uncertainty replaced by a flicker of determination. Sarah's father met her gaze with pride, a flicker of acknowledgement in his expression. All right, then, we'll confront the shadows, Sarah continued, feeling the warmth of her community behind her. But we need to understand what we're facing first. We need to unravel the truth. Before she could finish, the ground shook once more, fury rising from the depths below. It felt as if the very earth itself was resisting their solidarity. The shadows around them began to swirl violently, twisting into aberrations of dark forms that roiled and hissed like trapped animals. Stay close. Anna yelled, her voice piercing through the chaos. Heart pounding, Sarah focused on the shadows, holding them in her mind's eye. They were alive, sentient entities born of fear and desperation. A thought flickered through her mind like a lightning bolt, could she negotiate with them? Can we find a voice? She shouted, her confidence fueling her words, a way to speak to the darkness. Speak. Her father echoed, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. Yes. Communication is always the first step. Show them you're not afraid. Fear clutched at Sarah's heart, but she couldn't let it consume her. Gathering breath and courage, she stepped forward, her outline illuminated against the shadows creeping closer. With a clear, steady voice, she called into the darkness, I am here. We are here. We choose to confront what binds us. Will you listen? The chaos paused, shadows darting hesitantly, a current of anticipation mingling with fear. Was it possible? Could conversation unfold rather than confrontation? And just then, as the stillness enveloped them, a chilling whisper weaved through the gathering. Will you pay the price? The question cascaded into the night like a haunting melody. What price would they have to pay to confront the shadows, to shape their destiny instead of letting it consume them? The town was poised on the brink of revelation, and as Sarah felt the tension coil within, she couldn't help but wonder what sacrifice could possibly be required. Would they truly have the courage to face whatever trial lay ahead? Sarah turned back to her friends, knowing that whatever came next would forever alter the course of their lives. Would they step forward into the unknown, or retreat into the safety of what they already knew? Her heart raced as she prepared for the answer, aware that the next choice was now in their hands. The shadows danced as Sarah faced them, the chilling whisper lingering like a ghost on the air. Every heart in the crowd raced with the weight of uncertainty, but beneath that, a fire ignited a shared recognition of strength that surged from their unity. Will you pay the price? Echoed through the square again, but this time, something shifted within Sarah. Fear was palpable, but so was determination. What do you want from us? She shouted into the darkness, holding her ground as the shadows writhed. We won't let you control us anymore. A stillness fell over the crowd. The whispers quieted, and an eerie calm spread like a blanket. It wasn't just about her father's choices anymore, it was about each person standing with her, shoulder to shoulder, claiming their own truths. One of the shadows coalesced, taking form, revealing a face entangled with pain and regret. To confront the past means facing what you've sacrificed. Sarah felt a rush of empathy, a wave of understanding that swept over her. We've all sacrificed something, haven't we? She asked, her voice strong and unwavering. You think we're afraid of the truth? We know pain. We've lived it. But we also know hope. We want to heal, not just for ourselves but for every soul in this town. As her words resonated, the shadows hesitated. Sarah felt the energy shift, a pulse of potential threading through their collective resolve. We have the power to change the narrative, she continued, looking into the eyes of her friends, but we must not do it alone. We must own our stories. If we are tied to the past, then let us shape the future. We stand with you, Sarah. Anna shouted, raising her fist in solidarity. The crowd surged with her, murmurs of agreement flooding the square. Together. They echoed, their voices intertwining like a chorus in the rising sun. With every declaration, a flicker of light broke through the darkness, the shadows wavered, losing their grip on fear. Your truth, one of the shadow figures whispered, may just be the light you need to guide you. Sarah stepped forward. It was now or never. You think we don't understand sacrifice? My father chose to protect us at a great cost. Now it's time to reveal what he hid so we can confront it together. The shadows writhed, and a low hum began to reverberate through their forms. Tell us. What must we do? The crowd cried out, their determination bolstering each other's hearts. As if the shadows were listening, the figure transformed before them, revealing not only fears but also the echoes of the past sacrifices made and consequences chosen. Truth and clarity come when you choose to embrace what you fear, the figure spoke. To heal the wound, you must be willing to share your burden. Sarah took a deep breath. This was at the moment of reckoning. Then we'll uncover every truth, no matter how painful, and we won't shy away from the costs. We'll confront what has been hidden. With that declaration, the shadows leaned closer, swirling yet inviting. They began to surpass their roles as monsters, transforming into something that resembled whispers of the past, memories that had once seemed too large to face. They began to reveal fragments of stories of love and loss, of choices made under the weight of desperation. The town stood breathless, feeling the threads of their collective history intertwine with Sarah's words, woven into a tapestry of shared strength. Each voice rang out, resonating as they poured their truths into the air, each story a brushstroke against the fabric of uncertainty. I traded my horse for dreams. One woman shouted, unearthing the layers of grief. I sacrificed my ambitions to care for my family. Another added, strength igniting within her. Each voice rippled across the crowd, igniting a fire that burned brightly against the shadows. The air crackled with energy, not of fear, but of empowerment. They were not just confronting darkness, they were illuminating the way forward. As the final murmurs faded and the shadows began to dissolve, Sarah turned to face her father. It's time to heal, she said softly. Let us do this as a family. A tenderness enveloped them, draped in the soft glow of understanding that began to break through the remnants of despair. Her father's face, once marred by regret, softened as realization settled in his heart. You've changed, Sarah. You have the strength I could never find. This was more than reconciliation, it was a resurrection of hope, a promise that the cycle of silence and secrets could end here. The shadows receded, yielding to the strength of their truth, revealing a path illuminated by newfound understanding. Together we can face whatever comes next. Together we will write our own story. Sarah exclaimed. The crowd erupted in cheers, their hearts breaking free from the chains of their fears, and in that moment, Sarah felt a lightness that lifted her spirit. The battle was far from over, but they would face it united. Each step into the future would come from the truths they forged together, bonds stronger than before. This was her family's transformation, their new beginning, a story no longer tethered to despair, but to hope. As the last of the shadows melted into the horizon, the crowd began to disperse, invigorated by their newfound freedom. Sarah smiled, heart full and radiant, but as she turned to walk away, the stranger, who had guided her through the darkness, lingered for a moment. "Remember, Sarah," he said softly, "the journey isn't just about the battles, it's about who you become along the way." With a shared look of understanding, she nodded, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Sarah wasn't just a girl traded for a horse, she was a warrior forged in the fires of adversity, standing firm in her truth. This was just the beginning, now is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep motivation flowing. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending because your voice matters. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let's continue to spread hope and strength together.